There it is. That's the last of your strength, isn't it? A wounded hero is a most frightening animal.
Well, it looks like Endeavor is not going to give up without a fight, guys. He is getting back up for round 2 to fight back against High End. And even though his body is severely injured, he is ready to push his body to its limit in order to defeat this Nomu. I think All For One put it best when he stated, a wounded hero is the most frightening animal. How is it going, guys? Welcome back to another review where I will be talking about and discussing manga chapter 189 for My Hero Academia, which was entitled Why He Continues to Stand. And I have been waiting for this chapter all week long, with last chapter's cliffhanger of seeing Endeavor assumably lose in the fight against High End when we just see him on his back on the ground. We all were wondering, is this it for Endeavor in this fight, or will he get back up for round 2 and continue to fight with that injury against High End? And I am really glad it was the latter. Endeavor's stubbornness comes in handy because he is not going to give up that easily, and I love getting to see him push his body to its limits, but it's the ending of this chapter I absolutely love when we see the team up between Endeavor and Hawks, where he basically transforms Endeavor into an hell angel. He has fire wings on his back, propelling him to just unleash this explosive fire punch into the face of High End. So whether or not we in fact actually get the ending of this fight next chapter still remains to be seen, but the wait for next chapter 190 is just going to be a little bit longer than normal because next week we're gonna have a break. No new chapter, and then the week after that we will get chapter 190. But I'm actually really glad that Horikoshi is taking a break now because the upcoming month of July, he is going to be very, very busy and he is going to be traveling. So I hope he can catch up on some sleep and on some work because he will be attending Comic-Con and I just know he's going to have a fun time there. He loves Western culture and just loves comic books as a whole. So I am hoping he can catch up on some sleep so that way he can just have a fun time there. I would love to go this year, but I'm not attending Comic-Con. So if you guys are going to Comic-Con this year and you see Horikoshi at those panels, say hi for me because I am unable to do so. And I just hope Horikoshi just has a fun time just going to Comic-Con and just enjoying the comic culture while there. So that's kind of, I think, the reason we are having this break. But with all that being said, guys, let's dive in and talk about chapter 189, continuing our fight between Endeavor and High End. We open up this chapter to see Hawks and some other pro heroes trying to deal with those 9 smaller and weaker Nomus that got dispersed from High End's body, and they're trying to subdue them, trying to capture them, but then also at the same time trying to expand the evacuation perimeter and trying to save as many civilians as possible, because right now the city is being turned into a war zone and is really reminiscent of what transpired back 3 months ago in Camino Ward. We even see buildings starting to crumble and fall in the background, very close to the fight between Endeavor and High End, and Hawks noticed this and he is wondering how that fight is currently going, and that is when we transition back to that fight where we just see Endeavor lying amongst the rubble, flat on his back, and we just see High End muttering to himself, "Is there a stronger hero for me to fight?" And at this moment, we see the news helicopters appear on scene and they begin to give the play-by-play of what is currently going down in the city. And this is something I really do like, that Horikoshi implements the news and the media within the story of MHA because it just adds to its realism. If this situation was implemented in real life, the news would be on scene immediately to cover this story. Good news, bad news, natural disasters, the news will always be there to cover a story. And in a world with superpowered people and superheroes and supervillains, that would be the top story for the news to cover. But the main problem with the news covering this story, that if things go south fast, they become the outlet that spreads that fear and panic to the public that we see demonstrated within this chapter, because they begin to tell the public there is a Nomu on scene fighting our brand new #1 pro hero Endeavor, but Endeavor is severely injured and down for the count. That begins to spread the fear and panic that we see demonstrated in this chapter, because We have other pro heroes fighting within this situation, but they cannot hold back all of these Nomus. Only person within this situation with the strength to fight back is Endeavor. But the best thing about this chapter that we get to see is that Endeavor is down, but he is not out. As soon as we get that narration that this is reminding everyone of the event 3 months ago at Camino Ward, we just immediately see Endeavor launch himself back up with his fire, almost like boosters in a way, to just strike back at high end, and round 2 of this fight is about to begin.
Round 2. Fight!
Endeavor launches this fire blast directly at high end, but thanks to its speed, it's able to dodge that blast very easily. And then we see high end stretch out its arm, it grabs a hold of Endeavor, and then begins to mock him by saying, "Too slow," and then flings him as he crashes into the surrounding buildings. And then we kind of have this awesome panel of high end standing there, almost as if saying, "Come at me, bro. Come at me. I want to fight someone with more strength." I like getting to see this cocky nature coming from a Nomu, but this is kind of diminishing the morale of the other pro heroes coming in to help out in this situation, because if Endeavor, the #1 pro hero, is having a hard time fighting against this Nomu, how are they going to stand a chance? If no one is able to take out this Nomu right here, right now, this entire situation can turn out worse than what happened at Camino. So as Endeavor is getting up out of the rubble and there's just blood pouring from his mouth, we end up transitioning over to Fuyumi and Natsu within the taxi as they are watching this all unfold on her laptop. And I like having this section because we get to see the different perspectives on how Endeavor's kids view him as a person. With Natsu, he is looking at the situation. He cannot understand why Endeavor would not quit the situation, just run away and wait for reinforcements, because the way he views his father, he is someone that always gives up. He tried pursuing All Might and was unable to achieve that, and thus gave that up and pushed that burden onto his kids. And once his kids became useless and he had no need for them, he moved on to something new with Todoroki, and he even ended up driving Rei Todoroki into hospitalization. So he cannot understand why Endeavor is still pushing forward, going plus ultra to actually fight high end. But I love the dialogue that comes from Fuyumi within this situation, to where she says, "Natsu, there are some things that even if you think you comprehend them, you just refuse to accept, aren't there?" He hasn't given up. He never did. There is no one in the world more stubborn about giving up than that man. Fuyumi is right on the money with that analysis, because Endeavor as a person and as a hero, he has never given up on his pursuit of trying to achieve the spots of the #1 hero. And what I love about this chapter is that later on, this section right here gets emphasized even further when we get to see Hawks' view on Endeavor, when he always noticed that Endeavor was the only person trying to bridge the gap between the #1 and #2 spots when no one else dared to do so. Endeavor is a tough bastard, and he is not going to give up without a fight. So as we move forward within this chapter, we just begin to see the fear and panic set in amongst the civilians as we see this stampeding horde of people trying to evacuate the city as quickly as possible. But then we hear the newscaster begin to say, "This is what happens in the absence of our symbol of peace. When that one person that we rely on the most is not there to protect us, everything descends into chaos." And then we transition over to UA, where all the students are watching this unfold. They see Todoroki and they tell him, "We just turned on the TV and this is happening to your dad." Aizawa shows up and he's trying to console Todoroki, but before all of them can say what they want to say to Shoto, we hear a voice come over the TV trying to quell the fear and panic that everyone is experiencing right now. And this kid that actually appeared back in chapter 186, the same kid that Endeavor tried to do a little bit of fan service to, is coming to help him within this situation by basically telling the news, "Why are you spreading all this fear and despair? Quit despairing over the last traces of a symbol that's no longer here, and look at the man who's giving his all for our sake right now." You see those flames over those buildings in the distance? That is Endeavor still alive and still fighting in order to keep us all safe. Do not spread this fear. We should be supporting him right here, right now. I love the fact that this kid came back to actually help out his favorite hero within this moment. Even though that little bit of fan service kind of backfired for Endeavor back in chapter 186, it's just nice to see that this kid is coming to quell the fear and to gather the support for Endeavor within this moment, because Endeavor is not done just yet. He is pushing forward, he is going beyond, plus Ultra style, and he is chasing after High End, ready to give his all. Endeavor is barely conscious, he is fighting back the pain, his vision is cloudy, and his body has most likely gone beyond its temperature limits. But Endeavor does not give up so easily, and he wants to take out this Nomu with everything that he can muster up. That way he can prove to society that he can be their new #1 pro hero. And through fighting High End, he has come to the realization that this Nomu most likely has the weakness within its head. If he can just slap it on the face and deliver a fatal blow to its head, he can most likely take out High End in this moment. He just needs the speed in order to do so. Thus, enters Hawks. Player 2 enters the game. He distracts High End just long enough for them to combine their powers to where with speed and power, Endeavor will be able to deliver that final blow. But it's this moment right here where we kind of begin to dive into how Hawks has always viewed Endeavor and has always been watching him this entire time. And this kind of brings us back to that moment within Season 3 during the All For One and All Might fight, when we had that little moment with Endeavor when he just basically said, I was unable to catch and make up that divide between the #1 and #2 spots. We see that pop up yet again in this chapter to where it's saying there wasn't even a single person who truly sought to surpass him. But you, Endeavor, you were the only one who was seriously trying. And there we see Endeavor trying to bridge the gap between the #2 hero spots and the #1 spots, and Hawks noticed this. Hawks saw Endeavor never give up on his pursuit of chasing after All Might, and when all other heroes looked towards that goal and saw it as unobtainable, here we have Endeavor accepting that challenge, looking towards All Might and saying, I'm going to bridge the gap between the #1 and #2 spots. I will surpass All Might. And this just really goes to emphasize what Fuyumi said in this chapter, that Endeavor truly never gives up once he sets his mind on a mission, on a goal. But I also like getting to see this from Hawks' perspective, because we already learned that Hawks was not a big fan of All Might, but with this right here, maybe Hawks was a really big fan of Endeavor and looked up to him, because with this right here, he saw how hard Endeavor strove for that goal of trying to bridge the gap. And this could explain why he has been pushing Endeavor to become that symbol of peace, because he saw how hard he worked. And this is him trying to repay that, basically saying, you are now #1. I support you in becoming the next #1 in symbol of peace. Let me help you in getting there. That right there is really cool to see in this chapter, and the way that they combine their strengths to emphasize that Hawks is pushing Endeavor forward, where he bestows upon Endeavor wings, and they turn into flame wings. He looks like a hell angel right now, Endeavor flying towards High End as he is about to unload an explosive fire punch right into the schnoz of High End. And that is where the chapter ends. This is what happens when you have the #1 and #2 current pro heroes combine their strengths in order to take out a villain. It really does suck that we're going to have a break next week, but I am very excited to see what we are going to get with chapter 190. Is the fight going to end next chapter? Is it going to continue? Will Endeavor and Hawks come out on top? Will High End die? Or will High End end up escaping, and maybe they'll have to track it down back to the doctor's lab? Maybe Dabi will come into the mix. We really don't know. We can only speculate at this point. But so far, I have loved what Horikoshi has been doing with Endeavor during this arc. I know we're far from done with the arc with Endeavor's character as a whole, but I am very curious to see where we are going to go from here. So with that, guys, that is my review on chapter 189 for My Hero Academia. But now I definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts on this latest chapter. What were your positives? What were your negatives? And what was your favorite standout moment that you absolutely loved within this chapter? Leave those down in the comments below. And if you guys want to talk more about My Hero Academia outside of YouTube, feel free to follow me on Twitter. A link to my Twitter account can be found in the description down below. But now we have to wait 2 weeks for chapter 190. But until then, guys, I'll talk to you guys later. But remember, for Endeavor, as he's about to unleash that fiery punch, go beyond. Plus Ultra.